Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our math webinar. Today, we will look at the topic, raising the standard with numbers, practical ways to support math development. I am one of your hosts, Trisha Gay Carr, and we have Mrs. Dorothy Bailey as well, who will join us later in the presentation. So we're happy to have you, and we apologize for the delay this morning. We were having some technical difficulties. I hope that by the end of this presentation, you will have the strategies needed to work with your child at home. So let's get started. So today, we have several objectives. We want to highlight the problems affecting math achievement in our children, to improve our perception of numeracy, to find practical ways to boost numeracy development as well. So there's a simple activity that I want us to do before we get into the presentation. Here I have 2 truths and 1 lie. I want us to read and try to figure out which one of these slides, which one of these options out of the 3 is a lie. So 2 truths. Number 1 says, students with negative perception towards mathematics do not perform as well as those with positive attitudes. Number 2, approximately 60% of the students who sat the PEP exam last year were proficient and highly proficient. Number 3, 52% of students who sat the recent CSEC mathematics examination have passed. Which one of those do you think is the lie? And which 2 are the truths? You could raise your hand, or somebody could unmute themselves just to share the one that you think is the lie. Which one do you think? Or you can type in the chat. Can anybody figure out which one of those is a lie? Is it number 1, number 2, or number 3? That's the only answer you need to give. Is it number 1? All the persons who think it's number 1, then you can type 1 in the chat. If you think it's number 2, then type number 2 in the chat. And if you think it's number 3, then you go ahead and type that as well. Okay, so here we have person saying number 3. I see number 2 is a lie, number 3, number 2, number 2. So the majority of you have said that number 2 is the lie. I see number 3 coming in. Anybody else? All right, so those who said number 2 is a lie, you are correct. You are correct. Number 1 states that students with negative perception towards mathematics do not perform as well as those with positive attitudes. And research has proven that over and over, that your perception of math affects the way you perform. Number 3 states that 52% of the students who sat the recent CSEC mathematics examination have passed, and that is true. While the number might seem more than 50, it is really showing a grim future, as so many of the students are not doing well in math. However, number 2 is not true, because it's less than 50% of the students who sat the PEP exam for last year who were actually proficient and highly proficient. So can you imagine, we have more than 50%, more than half of the population of students who are sitting the PEP exam failing mathematics. And that is why we're having this workshop this morning, because we want you as a parents to make the difference in helping your children to improve, to boost their performance, to raise the standard so that our nation can, perform better overall. So let's move on. What are some of the problems affecting math achievement? There's math anxiety. when children hear math, there are a lot of children, just the sound of math or it's math class, they stop thinking. They don't even know anything. They start crying. They don't want to do anything. They can't even remember the numbers. Anybody here has that same problem? You don't like maths. You don't even have a good reason. You just don't like maths. It's hard. That causes a lot of anxiety in our children. I see one person raising their hand. Yes, it causes a lot of anxiety in our children. And as a result, many of them don't do well simply because they fear the subject. So we want to get rid of that fear so that our children can be more relaxed when they're doing their math so they can perform better. Weak comprehension is also one of the things that affect their achievements in math. If a child is not able to comprehend well, then chances are they're not going to be able to reason out the math problem. So parents, your task involves helping your child to understand even general things in life so that you can help to build their comprehension skills. They may have trouble with numbers. Some children have what is called dyscalculia. They are just not able to process anything that has to do with numbers. So you give it to them, and especially if it is presented in an abstract way. So you have to find strategies to help those children to be able to identify numbers and to also be able to use them to make calculations. They may just have limited foundational skills. Perhaps your child has a potential to learn the math, but because they lack some of the skills, the earlier skills that are necessary to build on, then they're not doing as well. Poor memory might be one of them as well. If your child has a poor memory, they may not be able to remember the steps that are needed. I remember when I was doing trigonometry in high school. Trigonometry, you could fill up a whole book with just one math problem. And if you have a bad memory, you just won't remember all the steps in that problem. So some of our children, that is one of the things that is affecting them. And finally, lack of practice. There are some students who, if they just got some extra practice somehow, then they would perform much better in math. So there's one thing that I need to highlight. It is said that mathematics is not about numbers, equation, computations, or algorithms. It is about understanding. So once a child has a good understanding, chances are they have the potential to do well at math. So we want to bear that in mind. And just like what I highlighted before, this is how reading is tied into mathematics, because comprehension ability or reasoning is also built through reading. So both of them go hand in hand in terms of math performance. So let us look at what is numeracy. What is mathematics about? Numeracy is the ability to reason and to apply simple numerical concepts. It consists of the understanding of basic operations such as addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction. It is also about grasping number sense. Number sense simply has to do with knowing the order of the numbers, being able to understand that numbers come in a certain order, also to be able to understand the value of numbers. So if I say, show me 5 items, you should understand the value of 5. So that is basically what number sense is. It goes beyond that, but that's a basic. Operation sense has to do with how your understanding of the signs, knowing when to add, knowing when to subtract, when to divide, and when to multiply. Computation now goes a step further, teaching that is where we teach a child to make the calculations. So now you know the addition sign. Can you perform addition? Can you perform subtraction? That is what computation is. Measurement has to do, measurement has different, there are different areas of measurement. You can measure length, the width of something. You can measure the height of something, the volume, which is how much liquid is in, so there are different types of measurements, and you learn them at different stages. The students would learn them at different stages of their development. Geometry, probability, and statistics, those are higher order math skills too, that is usually introduced in the higher grades. Now, one thing that parents and teachers also need to understand is that math is everywhere. Without mathematics, there's nothing you can do. Everything around you is mathematics. everything around you is numbers. If you really think about it, math is in every single thing that we do. You know, what are some of the daily activities that we do that include math and numbers? Telling the date or the time, you have to know numbers to tell the time or the date. Purchasing goods and services, you have to know numbers to be able to spend money to do those things. Paying your bills, you have to be able to read the amount on the bill and figure out how much money is needed to pay it. In cooking, mathematics is needed because if you're doing a recipe, you need to know how much water to go put in the pot, how much of the ingredient to go together, to combine together to make the recipe. You know, so there are so many ways that math is around us, and that if we can tap into that, I can guarantee you that our children would do so much better at math. Now, at this time, I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Mrs. Bailey, who will share some tips for working with children from the kindergarten level to grade 2.
You're going to work off of that computer?
I should just so put it back on.
Hi, good morning, attendees. I'm Dorothy Bailey. I've been at Michael for 30 years, and I'm a mother and a grandmother. So the tips and the activities we share with you today, we have tried them. We have used them over the years. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to look at some tips and activities for preschoolers and kindergartens. All right, so let's look at this slide. We say make the environment as stress-free as possible. And my colleague spoke about the math anxiety. And so we want to make that time a fun time for the children, especially for the young ones, so that they can enjoy numbers without getting anxious that I'm doing math. And you know, if you had math anxiety, they'll be passing on to the others. Look at the picture. We can see a father. Sometimes we don't see the fathers in the home helping the student. But we see the student is happy, smiling, he's working. And that's what we want to create for our children. And work on one math concept at a time. Because we know that some children can move faster, some work at a slower pace. And so, for example, the child is in kinder and they're doing numbers up to 10, but your child can only work with numbers up to 3. So don't pressure the child. That's what the child can do. That's what you reinforce and make it a happy time for them. Build counting skills. So you continue to just work on those numbers. So we look at this picture here. And I will ask, how many fish do you see? Right? And so the child may respond, and I'll see 8 fish. Okay? You may say to the child, which one is different? So they're learning words, they're counting. How many fish do you see that are small? They're learning words, and they may count 1, 2, 3. Okay, how many large fish? And they may say 3 again. So there are 2 fish. What would you say? Those are medium size. And so they're learning other terms or the math terms that they can use to describe and to say, put things in order. Okay? Now, looking at the fish, you may say, let's look at the one that is different. You may ask, how many eyes do you see? Some children may just say 1. because they're looking at the picture. But you want to get the correct response, okay, for the fish, how many eyes the fish has. And so you may say to them, how many eyes do you have? And they may count, 1, 2. How many eyes your pet has? They are still counting, 1, 2. So let's examine this fish now. How many eyes do you think this fish has? And they say, oh, the eye is on the other side. So there are 2 eyes. So they are using up the term, they're using up language, other. But that's a term students don't understand very early. And so when we use these skills to them, they get the understanding and can perform much better. Okay? And let's say again, look at the small fish. How many eyes do these 3 fish has? And they count 2, 4, 6. Some may just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At the level they're at. And so you don't rush them and say, no, do it this way. Work at the level they are functioning. Let's look at another picture. So we say continue to build number sense and math facts. So these chairs at the ocean, at the beach, you may say to the student, how many blue chairs do you see? Now we're not working on shades. So they may tell you 2 chairs. If we pull out those 2 chairs, how many chairs will be left? So you're working on knowledge and understanding math fact. They're doing subtraction. They're doing addition. You may say, if you stand facing the ocean, how many chairs would you pass if you start from your left? And so they're understanding left and right. Because in math, when you're working, you work, when you're adding, it's from right to left. So they have to understand direction. So you may say, how many chairs will you pass before you get to the red chair? And they may say 1, 2, 3. Some can just look and say 3. So we can give them the statement 1 plus 2, 3. 2 plus 1, 3. 0 plus 3, 3. 3 plus 0, 3. So they're working, they're understanding math facts. Moving to the next slide. Problem solving. So develop math vocabulary and demonstrate how to solve simple math problems. So we just spoke about it in the last picture. Now we're looking at another picture, all right? And we see that the mother is on the same level as a child. So they're expecting to get that direct communication. So if you notice the block in mom's hand, it's red. And so she's telling her daughter, pick up the red block. So she's matching colors. And then she's going to fit it properly on the block. So that eye-hand coordination is developing as well. Because you need to be able to write your numbers on the line, writing on the line. So all these things come into play when the child is young, and you have to help them. Okay, and other terms will come into play as well. So you teach your child to estimate and to make good guesses. So you may say to them, how many flowers do you see? Let me get some responses from you. Go ahead and put it in the chat. How many flowers do you see? Let me see what language they would say to you or what language you think they might be saying. Many flowers. A lot. Enough. Thank you. All right, so I'm getting some terms there. All right. But for some youngest children, their biggest number might be 20. And so they might say 20. So might be learning 100 and they may say 100. You understand? Which means many, a lot, enough, same numbers. Same answers you gave. So we help them, teach them to make good guesses. You may have a jar with some sweets or some buttons. And if the child can only count up to 5 or so, you're not going to put 20 in there because they may not be able to guess that number. So you work at the level the child is functioning. So you will have the jar and you say, how many buttons are in this jar? Can you guess? And they will look and they may say 4. And you say, show me 4 fingers. Okay, you're getting them to move from one stage to the next. All right. So we say make math part of their daily lives. And my colleague said to you before, we don't want them to be anxious. We want to improve on their memory skills. And so practice, practice, practice is important. Just like when you may have reading, a day of reading, you can have a day of math. And so you may practice for 15 minutes. Don't let it be long and drawn out and then the child start getting weepy. No, it has to be a fun time. Strengthen the foundational math skills. So we know that we're not in the normal, we're in the new normal now. And from March until now, the kids may have missed about 6 months of schooling. And so leaving from kindergarten to enter grade 1, they may be behind. Some, may have not remembered the skills. And so we need to strengthen the foundational skills. Skills for grade 1, they may not remember the math signs. And so you have to show them. You may have to highlight those signs. Okay? What are the skills that they need, that they will need? How to add, how to subtract. Some can only do single digits. And you may do it horizontally or vertically. They need to understand and you'll still get the same answer. If you say 2 plus 2 horizontally and you do 2 plus 2 vertically, it's the same response. Some may have to put in strokes or use their fingers and count. But they may not remember sometimes, and so they have to see the practical stuff before them. They may have to use counters. Whatever tools that will help, then we have to get that in place for them. So we strengthen the foundational skills that are necessary for grades 1 and grade 2, so they can move on and master math, not being afraid. Celebrate math success. It's very important. So if a child comes and gets 1 right, make a big thing out of it. If it's 1 out of 5, that's success. He will move on to 2 or 3 the next time. So don't rough him or anything. No, encourage a child. Reinforce challenging skills and concepts. That's very important. And I'll come to some of the concepts that you can reinforce. But let's look at this last slide before I go to the concepts. Okay, so your child has been counting 1, 2, right up. This is now grades 1, grade 2, and they can maybe count up to 50, some up to 100. They will have to know the numbers 1 to 100. So we may have to have that 100 chart. So they have been learning. You may have done it, call it 2, 4, 6, and so you'll have a pattern if you use 100 charts. Then they can see also 5, 10, 15, 20. So you set up different patterns on it. So they'll be able to count from 5 up to 100, maybe up to 50 for start. Okay? So now we have the clock here. They can count. What's the biggest number on the clock? And they will look, they will tell you 12. And so, how many hands do you see? And you see the hands are colored for the children to understand. One is short, one is long. Now we have two circles, one purple, one yellow, and you see where we cut them. And so we have the numbers under there. 5, 10, 15, 20. They're familiar with that. They've been counting. And so you're helping them now to read and understand time. All right, so I'll look at the final slide here with some of the challenging skills that we'll have to reinforce. All right, so we see color code math signs before the child begins to work so that they don't get confused. We're trying to let them achieve levels of success. Okay, so they may be confusing addition, multiplication sign, or addition and subtraction. They may do 2 operations in one item. And so you color code sign before they begin. You can use egg trays for counting. Okay, so you will have the egg trays. Let's say you use the trays with a dozen eggs. All right, so you may put one counter in each. So they'll be counting 1 up to 12. But some may put 2 counters in each. So they'll be counting 2, 4, 6, 8. Remember, we are reinforcing challenging skills. Okay, you can use that right up for the timetable. You can put 3, 6, 9, 12. And so you get them to be counting. And those responses are multiples of 3, multiples of 2s. So they're doing the multiples. Pretty soon they'll be able to understand the tables. Or they can transfer from using the egg tray 4 times 1. How many did you see in the first tray? The first slot, 4. The second slot, another 4. 2 4s, 8. So they're seeing it, okay? And as I said before, the number charts, you can use it for some children. You don't want to put 100 and get them confused. Start out with 10. Then you move up to 20, 30, 50. And by the time they get the rhythm, sometimes they don't need the other numbers. They'll be looking at the top, 20, 21, 22, 23. So if you just put 30, they'll be saying 31, 32, and they get the rhythm. Okay? Color, every other space. Okay, this we mentioned before on the 100 chart. So it's just reinforcing there to get other patterns, okay? And finally, use number cards to complete number sequencing by omitting numbers for the child to fill in depending on the child's performance level. So for example, you may have cards 1 to 10, 20 to 30, and you may pull out one of the cards. Can the child say which number is missing and put in the right number there? So there are different activities that we can do to reinforce math in the early stage that they can manage, lose that anxiety, and learn to love math and achieve success. So my colleague now will continue with grades 3 to 6 and beyond.
Good morning again. So now I will pick up from where my colleague, Mrs. Bailey, stopped. She looked at grades kindergarten to grade 2, and I hope you got some really good tips there so that you can help your child to reinforce the skills at that level. So now let us look at some skills for the upper primary school students. Before we get into the skills, parental support is important. So you may have noticed that we have been doing that throughout just to show you how to provide the support. Remember, you're not teachers, so we're not expecting you to necessarily teach the children, because I know how frustrating that can be for some persons. You won't be able to teach your child without roughing them up, you know. So we want to make sure that you consider your assistant's support, because support is always positive. So what can you do? Provide a distraction-free environment to complete their work. If you have a 3rd grader, 4th grader, you know, sometimes they want to watch TV and they want to do things, or they're easily distracted. You don't want to put them to work in places where they're going to see everybody passing, or they're going to hear the TV playing. Especially when you're working with maths, it requires a high level of concentration, because the moment you make a mistake with one aspect of the math, you usually will get the other aspect incorrect. So provide a distraction-free environment for your child to work. Encourage practice, practice, practice. Math is a skill, so it has to be practiced, just like driving, just like reading, just like even cooking. The more you do it, is the better you become. So if a child has a problem with math, then it means they need to practice more at the level that they are and gradually build on that. Ask your child to talk through the steps as he or she solves the problems. Now, that is one very important step. If you're helping your child and they're doing, say, addition, at grade 3 level, they might be doing addition with number regrouping. If you realize they're having a problem with that, then ask them to talk through the steps. When they talk through the steps, you will be able to see whether or not they fully understand the procedures in solving the problem. If you hear them making mistakes, then that gives you the opportunity to be able to say, no, man, look here. This is what, repeat that one, what did you say? And you can redirect them, you can correct them at that stage. Or you might find that they don't understand some simple aspect of it where you might have to go back to numbers or place values to teach them that, oh, you know, we can't put more than one number in one on one column, it's only one number. So you'll figure out what the problem is just by asking them to talk themselves through each step. You can also create or purchase a math dictionary. These are helpful because sometimes what you find, children don't understand some of the terms in math. So they might confuse division with multiplication. They might not understand that in fractions, which one is the numerator, which one is the denominator, you know, some of the terms that are important as they go through each topic. You might want to make a note of those, write them down, and reinforce them at home so the child fully understands what it is they are doing at school, or, you know, based on their home learning as well. Now, you also want to connect math to the real world. We said that before, and we're reinforcing it again. Connect math to the real world, and we're going to show you some ways to do that in the next slide. So here we can explore some everyday activities. Sports. Sports, I don't know about the women on the in the webinar today if they're interested in sports, but certainly the males are. And if you have a boy, one of the best ways to capture his attention, especially if he's struggling with math, is to incorporate sports. So when you're watching sports, you can tally the scores for the team. You know, how much does Reggae Boys have, you know, against whichever team they're playing with, you know, what is the difference in the team? Which team is in the lead? You know, what is the difference in the scores? Which one has more? You know, so you can use that to teach them the concepts of math. How about when you're watching the weather? If you're watching the news and the weather comes after, you know, you can talk about the temperatures and the daily forecast. Sometimes they will tell you it's going to be a certain temperature tomorrow, or the sun will set at a certain time. You know, that's numbers. So you can use that to also reinforce, you know, some of the math skills. Recipes. How about if you're cooking in the kitchen and you want your child to understand fractions? You can bring them in. You can teach them the quantities and the cooking time. You know, how long will it take me to cook an egg versus cooking rice? You know, all of those things that is tying in basic concepts in everyday activities. Browsing catalogs. Sometimes, you know, courts or singer might send out those furniture catalogs, or there might be other catalogs from stores that you get, clothing and so forth. Look at the different prices. Compare the prices. Which one is more expensive? If I buy this television set, if I buy a Samsung television set against a TCL, you know, which one is more expensive? Do you think it makes a difference for me to buy this brand over this brand because of the cost? You know, you're giving them the understanding of money and also the value of numbers. And we're moving on to handling money as well, which is very, very important because all of us have to spend money. So what we can do is to help our children, if they don't know at grade 3, all the different denominations. By that time they should, but there might be children who are struggling with math, and you want to highlight, you know, which one is first of all, the coins tend to be the most difficult for most of the children. Or they may know the coins and they don't know the other currencies. So you want to make sure that they know all of them because they will be spending them, and they also understand that they are multiples of each other. So how much $100 is in $5,000? You know, things like that you can use to reinforce some of the skills that are covered in class. Now, word problems, as we highlighted before, comprehension is one of the major factors affecting math. And one way to develop math comprehension is through worded problems. So the more worded problems you do, then the better your child will understand the math skills. So when I was in the classroom years ago, I used to have, if whatever I'm teaching, I would have a problem of the day, and it would always be a worded problem. And I usually started off with that because they have to think about it. I would read it to the students. It would be on the board and I'd read it to them as well. And then by the end of the lesson, they would have to tell me the answer. The first person to come up with the answer would usually get a little token or something like that. And let me tell you, they were so excited to solve those problems. Why? Because they were related to real life. So it's the same concept. When you are at home and you realize your children are having a problem in a particular math area, then you use worded problems at home. So for example, in sharing items, you can say, you know, if mommy and daddy has 5 apples, or maybe you want to go bigger numbers because it's grade 3. So mommy and daddy has 2 dozen apples combined and you have 6 apples. What is the difference in the number of apples, or whatever it is, you know, whatever concept. So always figure out how to use the worded problems in everything that you're doing. How many days are in 4 weeks? We all have to deal with calendar, so you can bring a calendar before them and show them how many weeks are in a month, how many weeks are in the year. If it is half a year, how many weeks would make up half a year then? You know, 6 months. So you can bring out, and that you can show the relationship between multiplication and division at that point. Using decimals to calculate dollars and cents. So you can say, if I give you $120.50, and you're going to the shop to buy something and you pay $100, or you know, whatever it is, but bring some decimals into it, dollars and cents, so that they can figure it out. Using length and width to determine how many tiles to buy or how many feet of wire to buy, whatever it is, area, measurement. You bring out measurement with what you're doing. So everything that you're doing at home, you can tie a math concept to it to reinforce what your child is doing at school. Estimating the time a trip takes. So for example, if I'm traveling from Portmore to Kingston, how long do you think it will take? And you can set the timer, and then they can check their guess against, you know, what the actual time is. And if the more advanced students could work out, you know, why it is so in terms of the time versus the distance, you know, and the speed and all of that, they can tie it in depending on what they're learning. So look for problems in real life that you can tie math into for them to fully understand the concept, because once they realize that it's real life, then it is more likely that they will understand how to proceed with the problem solving. You can also ask your child to compare fractional amounts when you're cooking and so forth. Figure out the amount for tip. So 10% of $500 will be how much? 15% of $1,000 will be how much? You know, those are simple things. Or taxes. If you want to highlight when people get paid, they have to pay taxes. So if I earn $4,000 for the week and I have to pay 25% in tax, how much money will I get to take home? Things like those, they'll be very interested in, because that is something that they want to know. Every child wants to get big so they can earn money. So of course they want to learn how to work out their money from now. So, you know, bring things that will grab their interest. One thing that most of us might not think of, but it is a good way as well to teach your children about investment from now, is to choose a stock. You know, every night when you're watching the business news, they always talk about this different stocks. Which one is declining? Which one is increasing? You can talk about those terms, and you can choose a particular stock and say, okay, let us follow this one. Let us see how much it is worth now. And then you can go on the internet, you can go on the newspaper, and you figure out how over time, how far the stock has, how much is that is improved. And guess what? You can teach your children to buy the stocks too. And that way they'll be even more interested in following it to see if they're making money. So there are so many ways to bring out math in daily life. We couldn't even cover everything now, but we just want to give you a basic idea. So we're moving on quickly to the early math challenge, the early high school math challenges. We realize that some of you might have children who are just moving into grade 7 and they're making that transition from grade 6. They may not have done so well on PEP, and because we saw the grades, so what those are like below 50%. And so we might say, oh, you know, how do I help my child? And we have a little cartoon showing somebody here, they got a C- on the test. And the child was saying that test was problematic. But is it the test that is problematic? Or is it the comprehension, the skills not developed enough to match the test? So we want to work on that. So what can you do? You need to figure out what is the root of, what is the hardest part of math for your child. Is it that they're getting low test scores? Is it that they have problem keeping up with the homework? Is it that they have problem understanding the content? The moment you ask yourself those questions, you should be able to figure out how to help your child. And you need to realize too that many students will hit road bumps in the road during high school math. So you have to take time to figure out what is wrong, help your child gather the resources available to them, and to figure out a plan of action together. So if it's the test scores that are poor, but the child has the potential, then you need extra practice. If they have problem keeping up with homework, then you need to work out something, maybe a timetable to say, okay, when you come home in the evenings, you're going to spend X amount of time. You know, you have math on Monday and Wednesdays. When you come home, you have to spend X of time because, you know, you usually take a long time with math. You can even time them and say, all right, let us see if you can finish these math problems in X time. Once they understand, they should be able to do that. If they don't understand, then timing may not be a good strategy because that might frustrate them. If it is that they don't understand the content, then you also need to know what to do. We're going to look at that. So once you ask yourselves these questions, how has my child been performing in math class up until now? If a child has been doing well from grade 1 to 6, but now they're in grade 7 and not understanding, you know, there is a gap in the skills. So we need to go back and figure out what it is. You might want to ask the teacher to help you to figure that out. Is my child outgoing enough to ask for help? You want to ask yourself that as well. Maybe the child is not asking when they misunderstand something or when they just need extra help. They're not asking. They don't know the skills to ask for help. You know, maybe they're shy. Or maybe they just feel like asking for help is a sign of weakness. You need to address that. That is an opportunity for you to teach your child that, you know, everybody has problems and they need to seek help. Is there something bigger going on in my child's life that could be affecting his or her math grade? So we are going through unprecedented times. The children are stressed out too, you know. And so we need to figure out if a child is tired or just stressed, they may not have good grades at that time. So you need to also understand your child and figure out whether something is bothering them that could be affecting their math skills or their math achievement. Now, how do we address the bad grades? I highlighted ask the teacher, additional practice, and let me highlight this one, Google search. No, Google is my friend. Let me tell you something. Anything I don't know, I check Google. I know the safety issues, and so you have to monitor your child in using the internet. Be careful about, you never know, put safe search on if possible. But chances are if you type a math problem into Google, you will find either a video or something, a lecture or something, highlighting how to solve the problem. And that is a good way for your child to learn on their own. So if they don't know how to do multiplication or they don't know a step in something, type it in on the internet, man. Just type it in Google and it will bring up whether it be a YouTube video or some other website that can show. And most importantly, give lots of encouragement to your child. Don't tell them that they're fool and they're not trying hard enough and them just lazy. No. Most children they're not lazy. If you have a problem, think about the hardest problem you had in high school. You didn't want to go to that class. Even at work, sometimes you have some challenging days and you don't want to go in. People try to escape the challenging situations. And so what your children need is lots and lots of encouragement, especially when it comes to doing math. Now I want to leave with you a few math websites that you can use to help your child. There's iExcel Learning. This one has plenty of activities and games to help the students from grade K to 8. So that's the early high school ages. There's one called Math Playground. If you type in mathplayground.com, you'll get to this site where it has shuttle missions, flashcards, arcade games, and a whole lot of games there for the different grade levels that your child can access. There's also Math Game Time with a whole lot of things there too, and Khan Academy. Khan Academy is an excellent resource because this one has tutorials of different lessons on almost every topic, not only math. It has for reading, sciences, history, all the, a wide range of things. All right, so remember, tie in your technology, give your children support, and do the best you can to reinforce the math skills using everyday activities. So at this time, I'm going to turn over to my colleague again, and she will take you through the rest of the presentation.
Okay, attendees. I hope you have gotten a lot of tips. We'll walk through a lot of activities that you can use once you see a problem or just to keep the children moving from one stage to the next. Now, we have some tips to boost success in maths. Be positive. Right, there's a slide. Be positive. Inspire your child. Talk to your child's teacher. Set high expectations, but don't let it be over where they can't reach it. Make it attainable. Show how math is all around us. And you have gotten some tips. You use material that are available, right? Encourage your child to do math every day, but make it fun and relevant to life. Provide the necessary math tools required. So you may have to get the ruler, all the other tools that are necessary. You want it for measurement. You get your protractors for getting angles, whatever the tools are. And there are times when you may not be able to manage by yourself. So we have to consider tutoring. So don't be afraid. Find out where you can get help, where you can get the assistance that your child can master those skills that are necessary and for success. So, the only way to learn And remember, we saw in previous slide that math is about numbers, math is about understanding. So Halmos is saying that to learn mathematics is to do mathematics. So have fun with them, create the environment that they can think about numbers and they can excel, right? So we have come to the end. We are going to have questions. If you have any questions, you can raise your hands or you can put it in the chat and we'll answer. No question. At this time, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask. You can mute your mic, unmute your mic and ask your questions, or you can put it in the chat. Handouts will be sent again. Handouts will be sent to you. We'll send the, okay, the host is saying that, okay. You'll get the copy of the PowerPoint. It will be sent to you, to your emails.
Hello?
I didn't hear the question. Do you have any other questions? If there are no other questions, then we thank you for attending and you'll get the handouts.
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Sherry, and I would like to know what's the best way to teach my dyslexic child in math. Did you hear me?
Yes. How old is the child?
He's 6. He's gonna be he's 5. He's gonna be 6 next month.
Is he understanding numbers any at all?
Yes, he does understand numbers, and he knows the
Can count
letters.
his fingers?
Repeat.
Can count his fingers?
Yes, he can.
You say, show me 4, show me 5, show me 2. He can do that?
He can do that, but after 5, he must start to count all over from 1 to. They can show you up to 8. If you want to show you like 7, 8, you have to start all over from 1. They can't able to show you 8 or 7.
So we can use trays. We can use counters. He knows 5, you said. And so you will be able to count out 5 objects. Then you add 1 more, 6, another one, and it takes time. It's 5 plus 1, 1 more. So he's understanding those terms.
Okay. I also have our course that I use to help him.
Add 2 more. Pardon?
I have an hour course that I use to help him.
Good. But you can't make this the problem too high for him.
No, I don't, because he once I've taught him it, as soon as you believe it, him just forget it. You have to go over it every day to catch it.
The repetition is what will help.
Okay.
As we said before, practice, practice, practice.
Yes.
So you do math every day with him, but make it fun, okay? But the repetition is what will be necessary for him.
Okay.
And use all the different things that can help, the counters, colorful ones, help him to sort out.
Yes.
Okay. Or you may be able to put 5 things in a circle, add 2 more in this one, 2 plus 5, how many in all? So he's learning all of that jargon.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Any other questions?
Not at this moment. Not at this moment.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
I would like to know, how do I contain my overly hyperactive child? She will sit and she will do the work. She'll be attentive only for a while, and then she feel like she have to engage in other things. She doesn't stay one place for long.
So you're asking for tips to help her to stay, to focus?
Yes.
All right, so since this is a math workshop, we'd really love to help you, but we're trying to focus on math today. But certainly we will have many more workshops lined up for you, so you can look out to see.
Like behavioral ones, okay.
Yes, we have behavioral ones coming up. So look out for that one. Follow us on Instagram so you can know which workshop is coming out, right?
Okay.
So does anybody else? There's one person who asked something about dyslexia. Your child has dyslexia, and so it is affecting their math performance. Is that what you asked?
Yes, that's what I asked.
Okay, so dyslexia is primarily reading, but it can affect math because of the worded problems, especially. And so what you want to do if it's worded problems, is it worded problems that the child is having problem with?
Yes,
or
worded
just
problem. Math is also in the process.
Okay, so what grade level is your child at? What grade is your child in?
First, grade 1. Just started grade 1.
Grade 1. Okay, and he has been diagnosed with dyslexia?
Yes.
Are you sure you're thinking that he's dyslexic at this time because he's falling behind?
No, I don't assume he's falling behind. I take him to so many doctors, and so now they recommend me to go to micro now.
Okay, so you're in the process of getting him assessed?
Yes, because I've been to so many doctors, and that's what they said to me.
Okay.
Because I thought something was really wrong with him.
Okay, I understand. And certainly once you go through the process, we'll make some recommendations. But let me just give you a few tips quickly. Okay. As we would have highlighted before, that, the children need things that they can relate to. So if he's in grade 1, he may not be doing that many worded problems at this stage. So what you want to do with the simple problems that he's doing, you make sure that you have visual things to use. So for example, you have charts with the numbers. You want to make sure you have counters.
Yes.
You have those already. You want to make sure you have counters. You want to make sure that while he's working, he has all his counters lined out and he's doing that and he's writing the numbers there. So he's using all his senses. The more he uses up all his senses while he's learning, is the more likely that he will understand. So make sure if he's doing the numbers, so he's doing little addition, you have the counters, then he'll count them up, then he'll write the numbers again. Then he may have to draw something to show the numbers in a different,
Yes.
to show it in a different way. So the more ways he gets practice is the
Okay.
better for him. Does
Yes,
that
we
answer your
don't answer my
question?
question.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any way? We are running out of time, but we will allow a few more questions if you have any. This one says, good morning. I missed out quite a bit due to interrupt. Is it possible PowerPoint to be forwarded to you? Okay, so Miss Marcia Stanley, make a note of that and we will send that out to you. Once you registered, we will have your email address, so we'll forward a copy to you. Yes. Is there any other question? Anybody else? Okay, so since there are no other questions, we thank you all for tuning in, and we hope that you will utilize these strategies to help your child so that we can raise the standard with numbers. Do have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. All the best with your children.
Thank you. You have the same.
Okay, bye.
Bye.